This conference will now be recorded.
Well, hi, folks. This is Sam Sanson with USA Voice and Data. Thanks for joining us this lunchtime. And this is a part of our ongoing series of 101s around technology solutions that we're seeing a lot of traction of within the marketplace. Today's 101 is on desktop as a service, and it's titled Reducing Your Infrastructure Risk, Cost, and Management Complexity. Today, I'm very delighted to have one of our provider partners with us, RapidScale. We've got a Kyle Surratt from RapidScale along with his engineer, Dave, who's going to be good enough to actually show us a demonstration of their desktop as a service solution. So with that, let's get started. Here we go. So here's today's agenda. Firstly, what is desktop as a service and how is it different from VDI? And why should we be looking at VDI or desktop as a service? Secondly, we're going to move on to who's USA Voice and Data and what makes us the experts. We'll give you an overview of who we are, what we do, etc., for those who are unfamiliar with us. And then I'll be introducing RapidScale, who is definitely one of the leading managed cloud solution providers out there, as recognized by Gartner and so on and so forth. So again, great to have them with us today. In conjunction with the topic of desktop as a service, Kyle's then going to be giving an overview of RapidScale's flagship desktop as a service offering called Cloud Desktop. And he's also going to be helping you understand if you might be a good fit for that particular solution. Dave is then going to give us an actual demo, a hands-on demo of the solution. And before Kyle then gives an overview of the some recent client case studies, folks who are actually using this the solution today. And then finally, I'll be wrapping up with key takeaways and what you should be taking away from desktop as from this desktop as a service 101, and obviously any questions, etc. afterwards. We'll give you details of how to reach us and so on and so forth. So that's really in a nutshell for today. So firstly, let's just talk about the difference between VDI and desktop as a service. So hang on, let me put my do not disturb on. Sorry about that. VDI was really a virtual desktop infrastructure which sits on premise, whereas desktop as a service, as most as a service things are cloud services. They're multi-tenant infrastructures in the cloud, and that's exactly what RapidScale is going to be showing you today. So when we take a look at how modern infrastructure has changed, it's important to just take a look at where we were, maybe only like 5 to 10 years ago, with all the infrastructure on premise. Most of your business workers actually working from an office, being given corporate devices and so on and so forth, and where we've come to now is everything's moving to the cloud, and with that, people are moving outside of the offices and so on and so forth, and being very mobile, etc. And frankly, this new environment generates increased management and security challenges, with people bringing their own devices and want to use their own devices versus multiple devices and so on and so forth. And that's really why desktop as a service makes so much sense, and with that, we'll move on. So why virtual desktops or desktop as a service? 5 real reasons. Firstly, increased flexibility. Giving people the flexibility of choosing the ideal time, place, and device for their work. It really doesn't matter where they are, what time it is, or what device they're using, not with a desktop as a service solution. Secondly, reduce risk. Obviously, if you don't have a bunch of data sitting around on people's desktops and or laptops or tablets or whatever, and you're able to massively reduce the risk of that falling into the wrong hands. Thirdly, reduce downtime. If you had a traditional computer and so on and so forth, and that computer went down, had issues, was corrupted, etc., you'd probably be out of any sort of productive capability for a day or whatever till your IT team can actually recover or replace your laptop, etc. Obviously, with desktop as a service, one of the joys is you can jump on any device and access your desktop and continue to do your work. So obviously, much reduced downtime. Reduce costs, again, without all the power being necessarily locally, with much of the processing power, etc., being handled, in the cloud environment, reduces your overall capital costs for infrastructure. And finally, the results of all these things: increased satisfaction for your team members, makes it much easier for you to attract and retain people. So some really great benefits of this solution. So a few statistics here. Expected to grow at 11% through 2021. 90% savings in energy consumption. 49% of organizations say they plan to add a DaaS model in the next 12 months in order to grow their business. That was at the end of 2017. I'd somewhat question that actually happened, but obviously, people could see basically some sort of benefits of DaaS even back then, and they were really excited by it. Obviously, I think what's happened is this marketplace has matured, and this actual infrastructure and solutions have matured as well. So even though that adoption rate might have seemed a little high back then, I think our friends at RapidScale can talk to us about what they've seen in terms of the growth of their DaaS business. And 70% of mobile professionals conduct their work on personal devices by 2018. I know I do a bunch of my business just using my smartphone, and I'm sure every one of you is in the same boat there. And then obviously accelerating the time to deploy applications as you roll them out versus having to roll them out locally on local devices, obviously a huge benefit there. So who's USA Voice and Data? We're a leading technology solution advisor and broker. We focus on 8 different sort of product areas: cloud platform, voice, internet, network, data center, security, and conferencing. Obviously, what we're doing today, we're talking about cloud/cloud platform type services. We deliver advisory services, which are really focused on helping our partners and their business clients understand what these different technologies are, what benefits they can achieve by adopting them, and then obviously helping them understand from the plethora of different solution providers out in the marketplace, which of those solution providers has a solution which best fits their individual needs. So we're all about making sure the client really understands their requirements and their goals and the benefits they're looking to achieve, and understanding their infrastructure such that we can pull together a short list of suitable providers and then have those providers provide demos, etc., before they make their decision. Obviously, we definitely sit on the side of the table with our clients and help them negotiate the best pricing possible with these different solution providers. So that's a bit about USA Voice and Data, and this is all we do all day long, right? So we're very much an advisory and brokering firm, and while each of you may be thinking about a technology for the first time, that technology is something that we've reviewed with countless clients over and over again on a daily basis and help them successfully implement those technologies. So that's USA Voice and Data in a nutshell. So with this, I want to hand over to our colleagues here at RapidScale. And again, Kyle's going to be taking it from here, and then Dave is going to be jumping in to do the demo of the desktop as a service solution. High level, RapidScale is a leading managed global cloud service provider, delivering managed and hybrid managed cloud solutions to SMB and enterprise markets. Kyle's going to go into a lot more detail about this. So with that, let me hand over to Kyle, and Kyle, just let me know when you want to have me move on to the next slide, and I will absolutely go ahead and do so. Thank you.
Fantastic. No, I appreciate it, Sam, and thanks to everybody that's on the line. Happy to be talking to you today, and I want, I always like these things to be conversational, so we'll go through these slides, but please feel free, anybody, to jump in at any time with a question. So as Sam mentioned, my name is Kyle Surratt, partner experience manager here. Dave Brooks is on the line, the AKA smart guy, which is was very accurate. But we'll go through kind of who we are as a company, our suite of solutions, what differentiates us in the marketplace, and then we'll look at some case studies as well as the demo from Dave. So go ahead, Sam. So RapidScale was founded in 2008. I've been here. I just had my 2 years, so I've been here for 2 years. I'm based in Texas, actually, but we've seen a lot of growth in the last 2 years. Founded in 2008, headquarters is in Irvine, California. East Coast headquarters, as we call it, in Raleigh, North Carolina, which is kind of outgrown headquarters. And then we've got 6 data centers worldwide: Irvine, Northern Virginia, Chicago, Dallas, Amsterdam, and Hong Kong. So we're a global platform architecture, and we're really focused on application performance. And as we go into our suite of products, you'll see that everything, our product portfolio has grown out of the desire to make applications work really well for our clients. So that's a little bit about us. I will tell you that in that kind of upper left-hand quadrant there, the thing I always point out that we're very proud of is that since inception, we've had less than 1% churn. So our customers tend to come to us. They tend to be happy and receive the service that they would like and the business outcomes that they would like. They tend to grow with us, and we don't lose a lot of customers, which is great in this space, obviously. So a little bit about awards and recognition. The one we talk about the most probably is that in 2016 we were Citrix Partner of the Year. Very, very tightly ingrained with Citrix and our other technology partners. You can see there everything from Mimecast, Veeam, NetApp, Zerto, Cisco, kind of makes up our technology stack. I will also call out that that last year we were acquired by Cox Business. They've been longtime partners of ours, and they made the acquisition last year, which has been great for us. They have allowed us to continue to operate independently as RapidScale, but we've got a large backing from a large enterprise now that's really helping us to speed up our time to market with new products, really grow our team, grow our technical expertise, and really do some kind of new innovative things that we can talk about more throughout this call. Next slide. Let me stop there and ask, does anybody have any questions regarding us as a company, who we are, kind of the background, anything like that?
I guess I would just ask, maybe you can just touch on who you would consider to be your largest competitors, Carl.
Yeah, that's a great question. So our largest competitors in the what I'll, for lack of a better term, I'll call kind of the cloud provider space would be someone with the likes of Evolve IP is somebody that we compete with quite a bit. The Effortless Office is one as well. there's a few others that are kind of on the, it depends exactly on what part of our product suite we're talking about, because sometimes when we're talking just infrastructure as a service, there's some other competitors, Rackspace and other things out there but those are, not competitors that are the same with our desktop as a service. So I will tell you that the largest class of competitor that I see that is also one of our largest class of partners is local MSPs. So in a lot of cases where we've got more traditional on-site managed service providers that clients are using, as they start to move to more of a cloud-based option, oftentimes we're working to help that client move away from that MSP, or we're kind of helping them decide between, do they buy gear and have that managed by an MSP, or do they deploy something into the cloud and have it managed by us? So we see a lot of competition there. The interesting thing is that's becoming our largest partner base as well, because we can work very closely with MSPs to be a cloud option for their clients.
Right. Yeah. No, I would definitely say that would probably be an opportunity. USA Voice and Data, obviously, we have a bunch of ITMSP partners, and we definitely recognize that some of them, don't necessarily have a cloud offering.
Yep.
And obviously their clients are asking about it. So this is the ability for us to make this introduction to you guys and have you guys really become an ancillary adjunct arm of theirs for that infrastructure, etc. I think is really valuable.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and it gives that partner the ability to monetize their customer moving to the cloud, right? So where traditionally that may be a business that's leaving them, it gives them the ability to provide an option that they can then monetize and continue to manage that customer.
I think a lot of businesses as well, have a tendency to, be thinking about, oh yeah, we use cloud, we use AWS, or we use Azure, or so on and so forth. But then, in conjunction with that, they don't necessarily have it as a managed service, and they don't really have any sort of support for that infrastructure. So I think lots of our IT partners have had experience with those sort of major cloud platform providers and so on and so forth. But that's a very different thing from what you guys are offering, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. So we'll dive into a little bit of what our customer base looks like, but some of those large cloud providers are, situations where really to make those work efficiently, you've got to have a pretty robust IT team, which, a lot of our customers do not. I mean, when we're talking our traditional kind of brick and mortar client that, maybe a healthcare facility or a regional bank, as an example, they're oftentimes not in the business of IT. So they don't have a big robust team that can go in and fully manage a hyperscaler cloud option. So they're really needing help, and that's kind of where we come in. And so to dive into with that being said, dive into this slide. As I mentioned earlier, we got our start around fully managed desktop, managed Citrix, so desktop as a service. I think that you called it out earlier, Sam, but not too long ago, VDI, as it kind of started to come on the scene, it didn't provide a really good experience for clients in many cases. And so, since then we've seen the ability to get bandwidth become much easier. You can get a lot of bandwidth for a much lower cost now. So you've got the things around VDI or desktop as a service that has made it easier to enhance from a performance standpoint. It works really well. And so when we started as a company, we started there in providing fully managed desktop as a service to our clients. Since then, our portfolio has grown to really encompass kind of all the things that are touching an application. So as I mentioned earlier, we're laser focused on application delivery and performance and security. So everything from the infrastructure as a service is hosting the applications and the data to the disaster and recovery and backup and security that you maybe wrap around that, especially in today's day and age where there's so many outstanding threats that are hitting all companies of all sizes. The security and disaster recovery can be a big part of the conversation. Office 365 is an area where we're winning a lot of business lately because the fact that, as we all know, email is a mission critical application to most businesses today. And Microsoft is pushing organizations to Office 365 off of traditional licensing models. And so as companies are trying to figure out how they're going to migrate to O365 and start enabling O365 across their organization, it's an area where we come in and help. And then finally, SD-WAN, which was something that was added to our portfolio probably within the last 2 years. And it was done really in a way to help enhance the network to make sure that the applications are being delivered efficiently and that those virtual desktops are performing appropriately.
Carl, can I just ask a question in regards to the SD-WAN? What solution
Sure.
are you leveraging there? Are you using this? I did see Cisco as one of your partners. Is that the Cisco offering?
Yeah.
Or?
No, it's actually we lead with VeloCloud in the SD-WAN space. Okay. So we're tight partner with VeloCloud. And so oftentimes people don't think of RapidScale as an SD-WAN provider or as a VeloCloud partner because we're not necessarily marketing that that's what we do, but it has become a very important part of our portfolios where, like I said, really delivering applications. We've been doing a lot of SD-WAN. We've partnered closely with VeloCloud, and that is our technology of choice there.
Okay. And then can you also just give an overview, like a high-level overview of the Office 365? Because lots of people already have Office 365, but they don't necessarily have any redundancy for it. Is that right? So do you offer like some sort of...
Yeah, absolutely. So Office 365 is one of those applications that somebody can just go to Microsoft.com and buy 10 or 20 or 100 or 1,000 licenses for their employees, right? And when they do that, they are given access to the application via that license. Some of the areas that customers struggle with that is that, how do they then go and implement that? How do they get all their users set up appropriately, all their devices? I mean, today everybody's got their laptop, some cases their desktop, their iPad, their iPhone. How do they make Office 365 work on all those devices? Those types of implementation questions arise. And then the other thing is they're just getting Office 365 with no redundancy or backup. So if anything happens to Office 365, the Microsoft platform that they're on, then they could lose data or have email be down for a while. So where we come in is for a couple $1 to $2 more per user per month. We provide that license, but then also the implementation, the migration to the platform, we back it up, we monitor the environment, and provide kind of that all-encompassing support for the Office 365 platform. Additionally, we've also bundled in a training platform that allows organizations to deploy training to their users across for Office 365 platforms. So the example I generally use is if an organization wants to start using Microsoft Teams for their kind of internal communication and collaboration, then they can develop some pretty specific, deploy specific Teams training to their users through our package.
Okay. So the only final question on the Office 365 thing is if somebody is already, for instance, our IT partners have already implemented Office 365 for their clients and so on and so forth, are you able to layer on your redundant Office 365 capability to something that they've already implemented for their clients?
Yes, absolutely. So we can do a couple of things depending on where that client may be in their license life cycle or term. We can take over that license, or if they're in year one of a 36-month term with Microsoft, then we can just layer our support on top of that Office 365 and just become the management piece of it.
I think my question was more not around replacing or layering on your support. It was the actual redundant infrastructure piece of it. Is that?
Got it. Yes. So what I should have clarified there is that the backup piece of that. So when I said we can layer on our support, that's kind of all encompassing of our support, our backup of the infrastructure, the data, I should say.
Okay.
We can layer that on if they've already got O365 implemented.
Cool. Well, let's jump into the main event here, the desktop as a service, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, page down. For some reason. Oh, here we go.
There we go. So as I mentioned before, our target market is kind of what we see as the SMB and mid-market space. We've got customers that are on the enterprise side of things, but usually that is a business unit within an enterprise. What we're seeing today is that the mid-market and small businesses today often have many of the same challenges as an enterprise company without the teams or the budgets to manage that internally. So they don't have the large IT department. Oftentimes we're seeing, 1 to 2 people supporting, up to, 1 to 2 to 300 users. So we're talking to that IT director that has a team of 2 and they're supporting an entire organization. And that ends up becoming a very good prospect for us because they're still having to manage their IT stack and IT resources in the same way that an enterprise does, but without the resources to do so. And that's where we can come in and be an extension of their team and really provide that kind of IT as a service model for everything from their Office 365 to their desktop as a service. So as I mentioned, to expand on that a little bit, we see that as a very underserved market, that mid-market and small business, where they are accelerating cloud adoption. They don't want to continue to buy hardware and manage hardware. So that adoption is accelerating without the resources to really fully operate it efficiently. So they're embracing the consumption model, moving from capital expense to operational expense in terms of monthly reoccurring costs for services rather than big cash outlays for hardware-based environments. The other thing is, as I mentioned, they need enterprise-grade solutions, even though they're small, medium-sized businesses. We all know that, if somebody's website doesn't perform or somebody's not responsive on email, doesn't matter how big or small that company is, they're going to lose clients. As I also mentioned earlier, that with broadband penetration within the market, it's easy to get bandwidth today, and the cost continues to go down on bandwidth. And so that makes access to cloud-based platforms much easier to attain, as well as just maturation of the service provider marketplace. Now it's very easy for customers to go out and buy their resources as a service across kind of their whole IT stack. So while we can service the business, large and small, any vertical, the common denominators we see and what makes a really good customer for us are business size. We say 25 to 5,000 users. So we've got customers bigger than that and smaller than that, but that is kind of our sweet spot. I think our average customer is probably in that 300 to 500 user range. The key thing is multi-locations. So when they're trying to manage networks and resources across multiple locations, generally that's a good fit for us. I mentioned limited IT resources. That is a key thing. Almost all of our customers have very limited IT staff, and they need help. Oftentimes those people haven't had a vacation in a long time. They're stretched really thin, and they're too busy focusing on break fix to be able to really provision and move in new technologies that are going to help support lines of businesses and impact the bottom line. So IT, in their place is becoming cost center rather than a strategic differentiator for them. We're not really focused on vertical as much as we are applications. So mission critical applications are key. Our largest verticals tend to be healthcare, finance, retail, manufacturing, hospitality, simply because those are areas that are often dealing with the challenges I've mentioned previously. And there are some security and compliance concerns around those things. So whether they're keeping patient information secure or PCI information secure, in retail, there's really some risk for the business if their systems are not secure. They can lean on us for help there.
From an application perspective, is there any sort of limitation? I presume everything, so long as it's web-based, everything's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, even if it's not web-based, if it is an application that runs within a virtual environment, which is most applications today, then we can put that in our cloud and serve that out via virtual desktop.
Okay.
We are seeing more and more customers using SaaS-based web applications, which is fine too. But even applications that have to be hosted, on a server, as long as that can be in a virtual environment, then that's a good application or a good candidate as well.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for that clarity, because I think most of us think, oh, it has to be a web-based sort of solution. It's like that's not really the case, right? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is one of the things that I generally call it as one of our key differentiators. So in the cloud environment today, we see a variety of support models. Here you see the far left, the circle that's almost entirely blue. That is, think about those web-based applications where somebody is using a cloud-based application, but the customer that's using it doesn't really have a lot of control over how that's hosted, how's that managed, et cetera. So that the company that's serving that to them kind of owns the whole thing. The opposite of that would be on the far right, where you've got, think AWS or Azure Cloud, where they're providing the underlying infrastructure, but everything on top of that infrastructure is up to the client in kind of an unmanaged format. We can do both of those, but where the majority of our customers land is in the middle circle that we call hybrid managed cloud. That is where we work very closely with the customer's team to understand what are the things that they want to maintain control of, if any, and what are the things that they want us to take off their plate. In any case, we have a 100% uptime SLA that is still in place, regardless of regardless of what the reason is, or if somebody messed something up, whatever the case may be. But we really try really hard to understand the business, become an extension of their team, and really help them grow. And we do so in a co-managed model, to where if a customer wants to make a change in their environment, they've got full access to go in there and do that. Or if they just want us to handle it, they can submit a ticket or make a call into our support team, and we'll handle it on their behalf. It just really depends on what type of IT expertise they have in-house and how they want us to come alongside and help them.
Sure. And so, that 100% uptime SLA is kind of key, right? And obviously, if a customer was managing infrastructure themselves on premise or in a data center or wherever, right? They're responsible for that, for managing that SLA themselves. So, being able to offload that SLA is it must be a huge relief for your clients, right?
Absolutely.
And as far as that SLA, obviously, lots of your clients, particularly those ones with limited IT resources, the idea of having a 24/7 support model is almost unrealistic, right? So how are they ever going to provide that sort of SLA, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we're full 24/7, 365 US-based support, and so anything happens in the middle of the night, we're on it.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
So now the kind of the meat and potatoes of our desktop as a service. So you did a great job earlier, Sam, explaining kind of VDI versus DaaS. Really kind of the same outcome, but when you're buying that as a service or through DaaS, it really allows the organization to move their applications and their desktops to our cloud where we manage it, and they're able to access their desktops or, as an example, Windows 10 desktop environment from anywhere, any device. Where we see customers benefiting from this is that, one, they eliminate the hardware refresh. Oftentimes, we talk often about quote unquote compelling events that are driving customers to make a buying decision. And oftentimes that is a hardware refresh where, they maybe have 250 old laptops or desktops that they have to refresh for their employees. Moving to a desktop as a service environment allows them to maybe keep those older devices, but have a brand new, fully updated Windows desktop that their employees are using. And that device then really becomes kind of a dummy device that allows them to get to the internet and access their Windows 10 desktop. It also becomes very bring your own device compatible. So as organizations are trying to appease maybe, multiple personas of employees, some that like Apple, some that like, Windows-based, workstation, some that like an iPhone, some like Samsung, whatever the case may be, we can allow them to, or desktop as a service can allow those organizations to still give their end users a fully secure device or fully secure environment to work in from the device that the employee chooses. And then finally, it's highly scalable. So as organizations, we feel a lot of organizations today, they're growing through merger and acquisition. And so if they buy a company that has 250 additional employees, it's very easy to quickly provision 250 additional desktops that their employees can sit down and work on, essentially day one, rather than having to procure an image hardware for all of those new users.
And obviously you'd be able to like sort of manage individual desktops based upon an individual type of employee, right? Something like a sales employee needs X and an accounting employee needs Y, and so on and so forth. So those are all manageable by
absolutely. So
profiles.
Yeah, if you think about profiles or images where we've got different images for various worker profiles in an organization that they can assign to make sure that finance and accounting has the applications they need, and that us sales guys don't have access to those applications.
Right.
So features and a lot of these we've probably hit on, but Windows desktop experience, all cloud-based, fully web-based portal. So any of our employees have access to the resources to be able to monitor and view the resources that they're using, add users, things like that. We use, like I said, Citrix, very tight partners with Citrix. So whether we can really kind of tune Citrix to work with the applications that are meaningful to the business, gives all the users a great, end user experience. We can support even rich media content. So we, organizations that do a lot of maybe have a lot of video in the applications that they're using, or we've got customers that are in the architecture side of things that use AutoCAD and these different architecture type design applications. We can meet the needs of those applications as well as we can control what access different users have to things like USB devices. So if an organization has proprietary data that they do not want walking out of their doors on a USB device, we can make sure that nobody can save company data on a USB device, as an example. Fully updated, protected with antivirus, anti-malware software, and again, multiple devices, access to a golden image like we just talked about, different images for different roles within an organization. And then we can integrate all their applications into one easy to use kind of Active Directory model.
So Carl, how many clients as they're kind of onboarding and moving to desktop as a service, when they're making that initial thing, that initial switch, if they don't have like a Citrix enabled environment today, are you providing consulting services to actually help them make that migration and so on and so forth, make that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. I see customers come to us kind of in two buckets, if you will. One is, where they're thinking about this move into a Citrix-based environment, as an example. They're thinking about deploying something like this for a business need, security, scalability, all the things we've talked about. The other kind of bucket of customers is somebody that's already using Citrix or that have adopted this model, and they just want it managed on their behalf.
Right.
The ones that are kind of contemplating how do they make this move, we have a team of Citrix engineers. One of the great values that we bring is that Citrix obviously is a complex platform, and so there's a lot of knobs to turn, a lot of levers to pull, and things to manage, and that expertise is very, very expensive for somebody to hire. So when they come to us, they get access to a team of Citrix engineers that have deep expertise in how to really make applications run well, and they have access to, we can help them kind of strategize on, based on their need, based on their applications, how do they make a transition like this.
Okay. Well, I think I'm going to actually make Dave the presenter here, and he's actually going to give us a demo, right, Dave?
Great.
Yeah.
All right. I think
I didn't put you to sleep, Dave.
You're in charge. Make us look good, Dave.
All right. I'll do the best to keep up my smart guy image here. So
that's it.
All right. Can you see my screen out here? My icons?
Sure, absolutely.
All right. So here I'm logged into our web portal. It can be for end users, right? This would be somebody walking into using their home computer or something like that, but we can have them set up on a business computer or a thin client to be a much quicker login. But to show you here, I have applications that are actually running in our desktop as a service cloud, but I can only launch these applications, and you can do this down to specific users, like we talked about before. That hey, we've got a business application, we want them to run a CRM, but we want it secure, but they don't need a full desktop experience. They just need the CRM. So we can go down to that or out to a full desktop. So I've got a Windows 10 desktop here. Click on it. It's going to ask to open my receiver, and with my multiple screens here, it's going to pop up somewhere. There it is. It did pop up on my good screen. And it's connecting out. I've already been authenticated because I've logged into the Citrix website and connecting me out. And we can do multi-factor, single sign-on type authentication where we're joining in with an AD and all that. But now I have a full desktop Windows 10 experience. You can see I've got my different picture here in the background between the two that I have access to run my remote desktop, to run my cloud. I've got in this demo environment, we've got the Office platform, right? So I can launch Excel and work through an Excel document, do whatever I need to, and save it out to whatever location that is deemed necessary by the business in order to do that. One of the other things that we usually like to walk through here is in our data centers, and as part of all of our solutions, there's no cost for bandwidth. There's no charge for bandwidth outbound out of the solution, inbound or that. So as you can see here, I'm doing a speed test at my home office where I'm working out of. I've only got 100 megs worth of bandwidth, but yet I'm working on a desktop that's got over a gigabit of connection coming back, downloading that. So the users have the ability to work quickly and bringing things up, getting to the Office 365 platform, SharePoint, their SaaS applications, different things like that they're able to see and get a hold of and all that. So, 1.5 gigabits of upload, 1.2 download with testing and running this across. And this is actually coming out of our Dallas data center, and it was testing up to St. Paul, Minnesota, and pulling those kinds of speeds down. So a lot of functionality. And this same experience, as I'm sitting on my desktop here, I could easily pull up my iPad or even your iPhone or Android phone and pull up your desktop and look through it. The phones are a little bit more difficult with the smaller screens, but you still have that experience. You can go look at a document. You're not going to be doing a ton of work in that way, but in a situation where you need to pull up a document and take a quick look at it, and you need more of a full desktop experience, then you're able to do it. Same thing would be on your iPads, iPad, Android, tablet, able to get out use a cellular type connection at worst case, or a Starbucks or wherever, gain access to your desktop and start working. You know, you'll have a little bit different. You don't have a mouse on on an iPad, but you can touch a screen, move the mouse around, launch any one of these applications that you have out there, and go ahead and work on anything that you'd like to in a nice quick experience in that. I could disconnect from my desktop and reconnect in from my iPad and be able to come back in where I left off working on my document here and start putting new information in, save it out, and do stuff like that. So any questions
Dave, like,
around
you
the
know,
desktop?
like, as far as like, I mean, one appealing thing is like the management of all your Microsoft upgrades and so on and so forth, people moving to Windows 10 if they are not there already, you know, moving, you know, if they've got like 2016 and they want to move to a Office 365 environment, those are the sorts of things which, you know, are very easily implemented via a DaaS sort of solution, correct?
Correct, because as Kyle alluded to on the previous screen, the golden image, right? Really, this desktop is a snapshot or a clone of that image. So I'm still using that main image where all the application lives and all that, and I only have a temporary disk space that's out where my user profile sits and those applications. So when I need to update applications, I don't need to touch 20, 30, 50 desktops. I need to take that golden image, and the process is so simple. You make a copy of it, bring it up, put your patches, your new application on, you test with some end users, and at one point, generally like overnight, you get rid of your old golden image or deprovision it, and then you provision in your new golden image. And generally that's a 15, 20-minute process because you've done all your testing, you've done all your patching in the background. Now you reprovision it. So at 2 o'clock in the morning, 2:15, new desktops are up. They've been tested, right, and hopefully tested by some power users as you get to that point. And then they're rolled out. The next morning, people come in or whenever they start logging into their environment, they've got a new patch updated system without having to worry about 30, 40, 50, whatever that user-based desktops number is to get patched.
So on the performance side, I know, we've got one partner that has a bunch of architect clients who do have, really large sort of files and like some heavy lifting going on, right? For their 3D capabilities and stuff like that. The performance that they're going to receive locally is going to be better than they're used to receiving locally, right?
As good of or better, yes. And a lot of that goes when we have those architectural type firms. There's a lot of investigation that I get involved with in what applications, how are you using, what type of rendering and different stuff that you're using to understand, and how that's using and how we would provision that desktop. And
Sure.
Does it just need in a virtual environment? Does it just need more memory to operate the same way? Or an example, AutoCAD tends to be heavy on GPU, right? Extra graphic type stuff. We can provide solutions that have GPU in them enabled for the end users in order to keep that same experience. And that, because if it is truly an application that needs GPU and we don't provide that, there is going to be a lacking of stuff. There's going to be a slowness to the screen redraws and all that. So we're able to adapt.
Dave, I'm just looking at the clock here, and it's 12:51, so we've got 9 minutes to wrap up. I think one thing that, before we go back to the slides, one thing that would be useful would just be to see that management portal in terms of like how you basically throw together your user profiles and stuff like that. Is that something you can show us?
Sure. So grab a new tab here and jump into our portal here. And in our portal, as I'm jumping in here, the environment, if it would like to pull up for me, there it is. our demo environment here, as you can see down the left, you have full management, and we're adding features all the time to this, but full management of this, looking at your cases, looking at different things, and coming in here like your dashboard, showing you all your utilization on all your stuff. But in particular, like for a desktop or like a Microsoft service, we're getting more into that self-service where, as you can see over here on the right, add a user. Go ahead and click on and add a user here for an Office 365. Virtual desktops, not as much. There's a lot more complication behind that provisioning piece behind the scenes, but we're working on in order to have that as an option. It's in order to go out and assign a desktop and that. But for the customer, one pane of glass to go look at all their stuff, even just from a high level or billing or that of what's out there, CPU utilization, memory, disk. Even our Velo clouds are connected in here, and we can get a high level overview of how they're performing, any issues that are going on, connectivity, things like that, that we provide back for the end users to look at.
Sure. So in terms of like the actual profiles of the different users?
So the profiles in this, those are generally just pulled out of Active Directory. So as a user is created, right, they're dropped into an Active Directory profile group. So you're just using your typical Active Directory tools. For those smaller shops, we're generally doing that for them. They're just opening a ticket and doing it. We're going to get to that point in this portal where you would be in your virtual desktop and you would say, hey, I need to add a user, right? But that add a user piece is talking to Active Directory, talking to Citrix, talking to multiple things. So we're pulling all those pieces together. But at the end of the day, it's really adding that user to Active Directory and putting them in a group that they belong, and then that will tell Citrix and everything else what type of desktop they need. They already are assigned resources in that.
To pump out there. Okay. Very cool. All right. Well, I think we're coming into the dying minutes. So unless you've got anything specifically else you want to show here,
I do not.
Any questions from anyone here? Or? Otherwise, I'm going to go back to this slide deck here. And again, this is just to recap, who would be a good fit for this desktop as a service solution with RapidScale. And over to you, Carl.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I've mentioned most of these, but, common business triggers, we think of those as compelling events. Why is the customer looking to make a change from from the platform or the technology that they're currently on? So compliance is a big driver for that. Like I mentioned, either recruiting new employees or acquiring new employees through merger acquisition. We see a lot of security breaches lately, so customers either needing to pass a compliance audit or right after a security breach having some issues. Disaster recovery has been a big solution for us that's tied closely to security breaches. Again, to recap the ideal customer fit, 25 to 5,000 users, often multiple locations, limited IT resources. Almost every deal that we win is an organization that is limited on their IT resources and IT personnel. Device refresh, implementing the bring your own device, and mission critical applications. So these, healthcare, manufacturing, retail, financial tend to be our fastest growing verticals, but the common thread there is that they've got applications that are mission critical to their business. Qualifying questions: how much time do you spend maintaining your devices? Oftentimes that limited IT staff is spending so much time updating and maintaining devices that they're not getting to think about the strategic IT direction of the organization. So that's a big question. Again, business critical applications, mission critical applications, as I've mentioned, what is the cost of their downtime? And then finally, is your business under any type of regulatory authority or compliance standards? And then some often objectives that we hear often are, we don't have a budget. We've tried to use VDI in the past and it was a failure, or we don't have the bandwidth. These are areas where we can come in and help them as they maybe transition their budget from a capital expense to an operating VDI and DaaS has become so much more attainable now with the access to bandwidth that people have. And then don't have the bandwidth in terms of manpower, that's an area where we can help. The thing that I will include here that I'm not sure we really mentioned is that as we're supporting these organizations, we have the ability to do end user help desk style support. So that can really take a large burden off of a short-staffed IT team when we can take on those level 1 support calls from their users.
Carl, why would you say, like we tried VDI in the past, it was a huge failure. What would have made it a huge failure in the past? How has the actual DaaS infrastructure improved to make sure that is not going to continue to be the case, that failure is not an option here?
Great question. The two things we see there as I've mentioned is that Citrix, DaaS, even the VMware-based DaaS solution, those applications are very complex and hard to run. They require a lot of expertise that oftentimes organizations don't have internally. So we see a lot of situations where they've tried to run VDI in the past and is a failure because they didn't have the in-house expertise to be able to manage it. The other thing I would say is that the bandwidth is key. So if they didn't have the right bandwidth deployed when they tried it in the past, then their end users or the IT team's customers, as I look at them, is they're not going to have a great experience. And they're going to hate the solution because maybe they move their mouse and then a couple seconds later their arrow on their screen moves. With deploying things like SD-WAN or really updating and modernizing their network, it can make a critical difference in that.
And obviously that's something that USA Voice and Data helps our clients out with a lot, getting more bandwidth and getting a better quality solution through a quality connection and reliable connection with SD-WAN types services, whether they're obviously with RapidScale or with another provider. That's definitely something we can help clients with. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll point out there, Sam, that's why this partnership is critical, because between what you're providing and what we're providing, we can really come up with a comprehensive business solution that serves the organization.
Okay. Well, we're just about to run out of time, but if you can just plow through these case studies, I think as quickly as possible, that'd be helpful.
Absolutely. So this one here is a mortgage lender out of our West region. They had 100+ brick and mortar locations. Key challenges they had were that they were due for that hardware refresh I mentioned earlier. How they deployed new devices for all of their users. They also needed scalability. The mortgage business, especially out west, at times has had some kind of vulnerability. So it's they need to be able to add new users or remove users quickly based on business need. And then they needed to free up their IT resources. Their IT resources were spending too much time maintaining their environments and not enough time focusing on the strategic IT direction of the organization. So we were able to deploy a desktop as a service solution that freed up their IT staff. They no longer had to have everything in-house. Their IT staff was then able to go work on, where do we want to take this so that IT is enabling the company to achieve greater revenue rather than just provide a device to an end user. CEO is eager to transition to cloud, which we see a lot lately. So it's a good solution oh, did I lose you?
Oh, sorry. No, I just went on. I thought you were pretty much done with this.
Yep. Oh, hold on. Sorry. I didn't see my screen went away. I was just going to throw out there, this is, these are good deals from a partner standpoint, $120,000 MRC on this one. Go ahead. This one's a boutique regional coffee roaster, much of the same challenges, multiple locations, limited IT resources. They were struggling with their point of sale system that they were using, and they had a key need around remote workers not being able to access their environment. So we're able to deploy a solution that improved the performance of their point of sale, allowed mobility of workers, and allowed them to basically speed up the time to revenue with their customers. And that was at just $7,700 monthly recurring revenue.
Oh, sorry, I went past one, I think. Here we go, a non-for-profit.
Yep, no worries. Not-for-profit is an area where we win a lot of business. Limited IT staff, challenges that you normally see in non-profit organizations where their IT budget is usually small, they're limited on IT resources. They had been one of these that had tried to do VDI in the past and had had failure there. And then mission critical applications that will ultimately, lead to how they support their clients, the people that they're kind of caring for in this region through their nonprofit. So we were able to, again, become an extension of their team, help them deploy a more robust network, and give them a VDI solution that worked, or a desktop as a service solution that worked way better than their previous VDI deployment, and ultimately took all that management off their plate, so they no longer had to worry about it with their limited IT resources.
Okay, well, great. Thanks, Kyle. Thanks, Dave, for the demo as well. I just want to wrap up here real quick. Just a repeat of an earlier slide. What are the key takeaways? Desktop as a service provides you increased flexibility, reduce risk, reduce downtime, reduce costs, and increase satisfaction for your workforce. And obviously, with a low unemployment rate, actual satisfaction of your workforce is becoming more and more important to avoid churn and so on and so forth. With that, I just like to invite you guys, if anyone has any questions, they can reach out to info@usavoicedata.com, call us at 3U12604-3070, or they can, and when they do so, they can just simply request a free cloud solution evaluation, and we'll complete an evaluation of their requirements, help them find out what one of these environments would look like from a pricing perspective, etc., and obviously set up any more detailed demos for their specific needs. And with that, folks, I'd like to thank you again for your time, and welcome you to reach out to us, and obviously tune in again in a month's time. We're going to be having another presentation on disaster recovery as a service. Until then, thanks so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks a lot.